Love isn't all that matters, Ade. Adeswa's voice rang sharp, slicing through the thick air of the one-room apartment. Her words trembled at the edges, but her eyes, red, swollen, unflinching, were harder than Ade had ever seen. As a woman, I have needs. And how long can I stay here hoping things will get better? How long? You keep rejecting job interviews upon interviews, saying they don't meet up to your standards, when you can't even afford your standards. She paused, her chest rising and falling as though each word carried the weight of years unsaid. I am tired, Ade. I keep working hard for us, supporting your every need. And then what do I get in return? What? Her voice cracked now, emotion breaking through her stubbornness. I am not tired of you. I love you, Ade. I'm only tired of your lack of effort towards working harder for a better life. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ade's lips parted, but no words came. He stood stiff, arms akimbo, staring at the broken tiles under his feet. Outside, the noise of Oworon's shocky life carried on as if mocking the stillness of his world. Downful conductors cursed at passengers. A hawker shouted, "Pure water, pure water." A baby wailed from a nearby compound, but inside, it was just the two of them and the stench of a dead rat that refused to be found, despite Ade scattering rat poison in every crack and crevice of the room. For days, it had lingered, embedding itself in his clothes, his mattress, his life. Tonight, it seemed to rise higher, matching the bitterness that now thickened the air. Only her perfume fought against it, a faint floral sweetness that clung to her skin. Filling the space like memory refusing to be erased, Ade lifted his head slowly. His face was blank, his jaw tight, but his eyes burned. He hated that she could see him like this, vulnerable, stripped of the shield of pride he had worn for so long. "So this is it," he finally said, his voice low, strained. "You've decided to leave." Adeswa blinked, her tears spilling over now. Streaking her cheeks, she reached for the small box she had packed earlier and clutched the handle. "I don't want to leave, Ade," she whispered, "but I can't kill myself waiting for you to choose reality over your ego. I have fought for us, carried us, believed in you more than you believed in yourself, but even love has limits." She slung her handbag across her shoulder. The metallic creak of the wooden door echoed as she pulled it open. She stood there for a moment, looking back at him, at the man she had once thought would have mountain, now rooted in ruins of his own pride. "Goodbye, Ade." Her footsteps echoed down the corridor, past the generator humming outside, past the noisy children playing ten-ten. By the compound gate, Ade stood still, the door gaping open like a wound, until her perfume faded into the cacophony of Lagos night. Ade collapsed onto the edge of his tin foam mattress, his back bent forward, elbows on his knees, hands covering his face. The silence was too loud. "She thinks she can walk out on me," he muttered into his palms, his voice cracking. He lowered his hand, eyes darting to the door as if she might reappear. "After all I've done for her, after all we've been through." But the words fell flat, lifeless. He hadn't done much for her. If he was honest, she had been the one paying rent, buying food, pushing him to chase interviews he never took seriously. Ade clenched his fist. "No, she doesn't get to end this. She'll regret it. She'll see me one day and she'll regret it." Yet beneath the bravado was shame, thick, sticky shame. It clung worse than the rat stench. He rose, pacing the small room, hitting his palm against his thigh with every step. "Why now? Why when she knows I'm close to a breakthrough?" His voice rose, though there was no one to hear. The cracked mirror on the wall caught his reflection. A gaunt face, hollow eyes, unkempt beard. He barely recognized himself. Ade looked away, toward the folder under his bed. Inside lay his certificate, a one shiny piece of paper from the University of Lagos, proof of his degree. He hadn't touched it in months, maybe even years. He shut his eyes. The noise outside grew louder. Laughter, honking, someone blasting whiskey from a roadside speaker. Lagos never cared who was breaking inside. Ade sat back down, his hands trembling. He buried his face in his pillow, inhaling the faint trace of her perfume left on the sheets. He hated it. He loved it. And as the night deepened, his mind drifted to the past, to the days when everything felt possible, to the girl who had once believed in him enough to stay. Ade leaned back on the mattress, the ceiling staring down at him like a mute witness, his mind refusing to stay in the present. Instead, it dragged him back to those bright days at the University of Lagos when life was still full of possibility, when he had felt untouchable. It was a Wednesday afternoon, second year. The campus sun was brutal that day, kind that made asphalt shimmer and the students cause snipper under their breath. Ade had been late to a lecture, rushing with his backpack slung carelessly. When he collided into someone by the entrance of the facility hall, books tumbled to the floor. "Sorry," Ade said quickly, bending to gather them. "You should watch where you are going," the girl replied, not harshly, but with a firmness that made him look up. That was the first time he saw her properly. Adeswa, braided hair glinting in the sunlight, eyes sharp yet kind, lips curving in a mix of annoyance and amusement. She was beautiful in a way that silenced his tongue. "You're Ade, right?" she asked, recognizing him. He blinked. You know me?" She smiled faintly. Who doesn't know the guy that argues with lecturers like he owns the course outline? Ade chuckled, embarrassed but secretly proud. Well, somebody has to keep them honest. That was how it began, an accidental collision, a playful jab, and an unspoken spark. Adeswa wasn't like the other girls. She didn't just laugh at Ade's wild ambitions. She leaned into them. Late at night, sitting under the dim lights outside Moremi Hall, Ade would speak with conviction about building companies, changing Nigeria, living on his own terms. "I'll never be a slave to a job," he once said, eyes blazing. "No 9 to 5 is a slow death. I'll create something of my own, something big." Adeswa had glazed at him even then, her chin resting on her palm. "Ade, you talk like you already see the future." "I do," he replied, chest swelling. "And when I get there, you'll be by my side." She believed him, perhaps too much. While others laughed at Ade's stubbornness, Adeswa defended him. When lecturers marked him down for being too outspoken, she encouraged him. When his friends warned her, "That guy talks too much. He's all dreams, no plan," she ignored them. Love makes its own logic. But even back then, cracks had shown. Ade was brilliant, but he was also proud. He skipped internships, calling them a waste of time. He mocked classmates who scrambled for small jobs during the holidays. "They are already selling themselves short," he would scoff, laying on the hostel bunk. "I am meant for more than peanuts." Adeswa would bite her lip, unsure whether to agree or argue. She loved his fire, but sometimes it burned too arrogantly. Still, she stayed. She worked part-time at a campus cafe, saving small amounts, helping him when he ran short. When Ade's laptop crashed in final year, it was Adeswa who borrowed money from a cousin to get him another one. "It's for us," she told him, brushing off his guilt. "You pay me back when you've made it." Back then, she believed repayment would come sooner than later. Convocation day was glorious. Ade stood in his gown, flashing his certificate like a trophy. He hugged Adeswa tightly. "This is just the beginning. Watch, I'll make you proud." She smiled into his chest. "I already am." But months passed, then a year. Ade kept rejecting job offers. "Too small. Not for me. I deserve more." At first, Adeswa admired his resolve. "Yes, Ade, hold out for better." By the second year, admiration had soared into worry. By the third, into frustration. She took up a corporate job in Lagos, commuting long hours, sacrificing sleep, paying their bills. Each time she returned to the dingy apartment they rented, she saw him, still jobless, still holding on to pride like he was gold. And she kept asking herself, how long? Ade snapped out of the memory with a bitter laugh. "She believed in me too much," he muttered. His chest ached. Once, he had been her hero. Once, her eyes had shone with trust whenever he spoke. Now those same eyes had looked at him tonight with exhaustion, disappointment, maybe even contempt. He rolled to his side, facing the wall. The paint was peeling, dampened by the last rainy season. He reached out, tracing the cracks with his finger. Somewhere outside, a group of boys played football with a plastic bottle. Shouting and laughing, life went on. Ade closed his eyes, letting the memories burn him. He wanted to cling to the past, but the present weighed heavier. Adeswa was gone, and all he had left were ghosts of promises unfulfilled. The room was quieter than Ade had ever known it. For days after Adeswa left, her absence hung over him like smoke that refused to clear. He woke each morning half expecting to hear her kettle whistling, to see her ironing her office clothes, humming a song under her breath. But the corner where her box had once sat was bare now, and the bed felt wider, emptier. The rat stench still lingered, sharper than before. Ade searched the room obsessively. Under the mattress, behind the wardrobe, inside the cracked ceiling boards, nothing. It was as though the smell had rooted itself in the walls, a punishment he couldn't escape. Neighbors whispered. He caught snatches of it when he stepped out to buy bread or water. "Na that girl wey dey feed am don waka." I talk am say one day she go tire. Na only pride full at the head. Fine boy, wasted sense. Book no be life. Their voices cut deeper than knives. He tried to walk past with his head held high, but each laugh that followed felt aimed at him. At night, he lay awake, the hum of generators mixing with his thoughts. Hunger gnawed at him, pride told him to endure, but each day felt heavier, as though the air itself was turning against him. He reached once for his phone to call Adeswa. His thumb hovered over her number, heart racing, but his pride yanked him back. No, she chose to leave. Let her see me rise without her. He threw the phone aside and called to himself, clinging to anger because it was easier than grief. Ade's days blurred into each other. The calendar on his wall still showed the month Adeswa had left. The date circled in red from when she was supposed to attend the friend's wedding with him. He hadn't bothered to flip it forward. He spent mornings staring at his laptop, scrolling through job postings. Each click carried a weight. Customer care officer, 80,000 naira per month, he snorted. Talking to angry customers all day for peanuts, never. Administrative assistant, 65,000 naira per month. Assistant, me. I didn't sweat for a degree just to fetch coffee and photocopy documents. Sales representative, commission-based, begging people to buy. I beg. He closed the laptop in disgust, muttering, these jobs are beneath me. But beneath him was all he had left. The first month after Adeswa left, his savings vanished quickly. Without her contribution, rent alone gulped nearly half. The rest went to food, transport, and the occasional recharge card. By the second month, hunger became his constant companion. He cut his meals from 3 to 1, stretching a loaf of bread across days. He drank garri until his stomach rebelled. Sometimes he swallowed water just to trick his body into silence. One evening, his neighbor, Mama Ife, knocked on his door. She was a plump woman in her 40s, always gossiping in the compound. Ade, you never chop since morning. I see you thin well. I'm fine, ma, he lied, forcing a smile. She shook her head and left, but later slipped a plate of rice by his door. He stared at it for hours before finally eating, shame burning his throat with each swallow. He stopped picking calls from old classmates. He didn't want to hear their voices laced with success or pity. When he saw them posting new jobs or pictures of vacations on Instagram, he scrolled past quickly, telling himself, they've sold themselves short. Me, I'm waiting for greatness. Yet deep down, envy chewed at him. On some nights, when the lights were out and the compound was silent, he whispered to himself, maybe I should have taken that customer care job. At least I'll have small change. But by morning, pride will rise again, choking the thoughts. One afternoon, Tunde, an old friend from university, stopped by. He was dressed neatly in office wear, the smell of cologne preceding him. Ade, long time, Tunde said, hugging him warmly. I just got transferred to Lagos. Thought I'll check on you. Ade first agreed. You're looking good, my guy. Tunde glanced around the dim room, his eyes lingering on the cracked ceiling, the unwashed dishes, the mattress on the floor. He cleared his throat. So, what have you been up to? Working on some ideas, Ade replied vaguely. Big things coming. Tunde smiled politely, but Ade saw the doubt flicker in his eyes. You know, there's an opening at my office, Tunde said cautiously. It's not much, but it could be a start. Ade's chest tightened. He shook his head. No. I'm aiming higher. You know me. Tunde hesitated and nodded. All right. Just don't wait too long. Ade, time moves faster than we think. When he left, the room felt smaller, darker. Ade kicked the empty water bottle by his bed, fury bubbling. Why does everyone think I should settle? But as night fell, the silence pressed in again, and for the first time, Ade wondered if maybe they were right. By the end of that year, Ade had stopped checking job sites altogether. His pride, once a shield, had turned into chains, and with nothing left to hold on to, he began drifting toward the only crowd that didn't judge him, the boys on the streets. The first time Ade sat with the boys by the junction, he told himself it was temporary. Just one evening, just to ease his mind. They were a noisy bunch, shirts half-buttoned, slippers slapping the ground, their laughter rude and careless. Someone passed a bottle of cheap gin. Ade hesitated, then took a sip. The burn in his throat felt like defiance, a protest against the weight of failure. One sip became another. Soon, he was irregular. By day, he drifted aimlessly through Oworonshoki's chaotic streets, hands in his pockets, eyes avoiding the pity of neighbors. By night, he sat on broken wooden benches with the area boys, smoke curling in the air, laughter masking emptiness. Guy, forget job, one of them, nicknamed Scatter, said one night, inhaling smoke. Now who get connection they chop? We dey here dey hustle our own. Hustle meant extortion. At first, Ade recalled, he told himself he was different. Better. But hunger doesn't care about pride. The day he joined them to block cars at the narrow road leading to 3rd Mainland Bridge, his chest pounded with shame. Still, he stretched his hand like the rest, demanding tokens from frustrated drivers. Some paid quickly, eager to pass. Others argued, cursing. Ade avoided eye contact. His voice slow, but he took the money all the same. Lagos streets were unforgiving. Downfall buses screeched. Conductors hanging halfway out, spitting insults at anyone in their path. Hawkers moved between cars, balancing gala and lacasera on their head. Policemen sometimes stormed the junction, scattering the boys. Batons raised. Ade ran with them, adrenaline surging, shame gnawing. Each time he told himself, this is the last, tomorrow I'll change, but tomorrow always looks like yesterday. It was a hot afternoon, the kind where the sun pressed like hot iron against the skin. Ade stood at the junction with Scatter and the others, sweat dripping down his back. His shirt was faded, slippers worn thin. A sleek black Range Rover slowed as it approached. Instinctively, the boys surrounded it, palms slapping the windows. Boss, show love. Now weekend though, Scatter shouted. The tinted glass rolled down halfway. Ade stepped forward to collect the money and froze. Behind the wheel sat Onome. Onome, his classmate from university. The same Onome who used to borrow his lecture notes. The same Onome who once told him, Ade, you will go far. You're different. Now Onome sat in crisp white shirt, wristwatch glinting, air-conditioned comfort swirling inside the SUV. His eyes widened as they met Ade's. Shock. Recognition, then pity. Ade. Onome's voice carried disbelief. Ade's throat closed. His hand trembled. Still outstretched, Scatter nudged him. Collect am now. Onome hesitated, then reached into his wallet and handed him 2 crumpled notes. Not much, just enough to pass without trouble. Ade took it, his fingers burning. He wanted the ground to swallow him whole. Onome drove off, the SUV merging back into the traffic, leaving Ade standing still, money in hand, heart collapsing. That night, Ade couldn't drink. The laughter of the boys grated on him. He walked home alone, the streets buzzing with life, hawkers calling, children playing, couples strolling. In his room, the rat stench was gone at last. He didn't know when it had disappeared, but now, the absence of the smell felt worse, because it meant he had nothing left to blame. He pulled out the folder from under his bed, his certificate, stared back at him, mocking. His reflection in the cracked mirror looked older, defeated. Tears came uninvited. He buried his face in his hands, sobbing until his chest hurt. For the first time, he admitted the truth, not to anyone else, but to himself. I did this. Not Adeswa, not the system, me. He wiped his face, sat up and pulled his laptop from the corner. Dust coated the keyboard. He brushed it off with trembling hands. His chest rose and fell as he pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life, and for the first time in years, Ade began to apply for jobs again. The fall was complete. Ade had tasted shame so bitter it burned deeper than hunger. Ade's first week of job applications was humiliating. The silence after submitting applications online was deafening. No acknowledgement, no feedback, just emptiness. Still, every night he opened his laptop, searched for openings and sent out more CVs. On the 5th day, he received his first invitation. The company was on the mainland, a mid-sized firm looking for an admin assistant. He borrowed Scatter's iron to press his shirt, wore the same black trousers he had owned since NYC, and took a downfall bus, sweating through traffic. Inside the office, the air smelled of polish and air conditioning so different from Oworonshoki's dust. He sat in a waiting room with the others in sharp suits, leather shoes shining. Ade looked down at his scuffed shoes and swallowed. When it was his turn, he entered the interview room, palms clammy. The panel asked him questions, and though his answers were honest, his voice lacked confidence. They thanked him politely. A week later, the rejection email came. Ade sat on his bed that night, staring at the cracked ceiling. Maybe I'm too late, he whispered. But he didn't stop. He applied for more roles, another interview, another injection. Months dragged on. Oworonshoki's people began whispering, "Na Ade wey no gree work. See am now dey waka like ghost." Scatter mocked him, saying, "Na laptop dey put food for table. but Ade's stubbornness hardened. He had seen Onome in that Range Rover. He had felt the shame burned into his skin, and he swore never again. One humid morning, Ade received an email that didn't sound like rejection. It was from a small but ambitious tech firm on Victoria Island. They weren't impressed by his lack of experience, but they admired his degree and persistence. They offered him an internship, barely paid, just transport stipend. Ade didn't care. He accepted immediately. The first day he walked into the glass building, he felt out of place. Everyone typed quickly, screens filled with codes and designs he couldn't understand. He thought of turning back, of telling himself he didn't belong, but the manager, a calm man named Mr. Bello, stopped him. "You're here to learn," Bello said. "Don't compare yourself. Just stay curious." The words became Ade's anchor. Ade threw himself into the work. He stayed after hours, watching YouTube tutorials on coding, asking endless questions, practicing even when others had gone home. At first, his colleagues teased him for his slowness, but gradually they noticed something. Ade never gave up. He improved, bit by bit. 6 months in, he could build simple web pages. A year later, he was writing code confidently. 2 years later, he was no longer just an intern. He was a junior software engineer. Mr. Benlo pulled him aside one evening after work. "You remind me of myself at your age," he said. "You were raw when you came, but now you're hungry. Don't stop. Hunger will take you far." Ade nodded. But that night, alone, in his apartment, he wept. Not out of sadness this time, but gratitude. By his 33rd birthday, Ade was earning enough to leave Oworonshoki. He moved into a modest apartment on the island. For the first time, he woke the silence instead of downfall horns, to fresh air instead of smoke and gutter stench. He furnished the place slowly. Sofa first, then a dining table, then a bed that didn't creak. Neighbors greeted him differently now, not with pity but with respect. Still, Ade lived simply. He remembered the streets too clearly to forget himself. But deep inside, a quiet confidence grew. And yet, something was missing. At dinner, he often set 2 plates out of habit, then returned one to the cupboard. He thought of Adeswa, the girl who had once believed in him, then walked away when belief alone wasn't enough. He searched for her on Facebook, on Instagram, nothing. Sometimes he dreamt of her perfume, the same that once marked the dead rat stains in Oworonshoki. But Adeswa was gone. Ade never liked birthdays. They were just ordinary days, sometimes forgotten entirely. But his 35th was different. His colleagues insisted on celebrating. His friends booked a dinner at a popular upscale restaurant on the island. White walls, dim lights, jazz humming through hidden speakers. Ade walked in wearing a tailored navy blue suit, nothing extravagant, but well-fitted. Confident. People greeted him warmly. Glasses clicked. Laughter rose. For the first time, he allowed himself to feel proud. But pride quickly turned to disbelief, because across the room, at a table with one of his friend's girlfriends, sat Adeswa. She hadn't changed much, yet everything about her had. Her hair was longer, curled over her shoulders. Her eyes carried the same fire, but behind it was a weariness, a quiet battle. When their eyes met, Adeswa froze. Wine glass halfway to her lips, Ade's heart hammered against his chest. The world blurred. The music, the laughter, the clinking of glasses, all drowned in the silence of their locked gaze. It was Onome all over again. That same surge of shame, recognition, shock. But this time, Ade wasn't in slippers at a junction. He was in polished shoes, seated at a table where he belonged. Adeswa looked away first. Later that evening, she found him outside on the balcony, away from the noise. Lagos stretched beneath them. Glittering lights reflected on the lagoon. "Ade," she said softly. He turned. Her voice still had the same rhythm, the same softness that once suited him. Adeswa. They stood in silence for a moment. The years between them felt like a war. "You look different," she finally said. "So do you." A small, sad smile touched her lips. Life has a way of changing people. Ade wanted to ask her everything at once. Where had she been? Was she married? Did she have kids? But he held back. She sighed, leaning against the railing. "I thought I would be married by now. I was in a relationship for a long time. Thought he was the one, but..." She shook her head. "He wasn't." Her voice cracked slightly. Ade's chest tightened. I didn't marry Ade, she added, as though answering the questions he couldn't voice. I gave my best years to someone who couldn't see me. Funny, isn't it? Ade swallowed. He thought of the night he had cursed her name. The night he believed she had moved on happily while he rotted in Oworon Shoki. And now, this? I was angry at you for a long time, Ade, admitted. I thought you left because you didn't love me enough. Adeswa's eyes glistened. I left because I loved you too much to watch you waste yourself. You wouldn't listen, Ade. I was breaking, and I had to save myself. Silence. The truth hung heavy between them. Ade looked out at the lagoon. You were right. I didn't see it then, but if you hadn't left, maybe I'd still be the same man you walked away from. You saved me, in a way. Adeswa wiped at her eyes quickly, as if embarrassed. The night ended, with laughter and toasts. But for Ade and Adeswa, it was just the beginning. In the weeks that followed, they met again. Coffee at small cafes, long walks along the marina, quiet dinners, conversations flowed, sometimes awkward, sometimes effortless, always real. They were no longer the reckless dreamers of their university days. They were older now, scarred, humbled by life. One evening, as they sat by the water, Adeswa asked softly, "Do you think love can survive all this?" Ade took a long breath. Love isn't all that matters, Adeswa. I know that now. But maybe love is enough to make us try again. With all the lessons we've learned. She looked at him for a long moment, then leaned her head on it. And for the first time in years, Ade felt whole. This wasn't a fairy tale reunion. There was no begging, no trial. Just two broken people finding each other again. Not in the heat of youthful passion, but in the quiet strength of maturity. And perhaps that was the real love story all along.